Welcome in. It is Big Ten Today. We are presented by Gatorade on this Wednesday. Great to have you with us, Dave Revson and Shimmy Miller. Yesterday, we went through the men's schedules for the upcoming basketball season. We got the women's today. Again, we don't have the dates. We just have the opponents. And whereas there was a little bit of a drama with the men because you have the 3-2 plays and not all of them are set, with the women there really is no drama.
Right.
You've got
No
the
drama.
1-2 play. You know who it's going to be against because it's the same team as last year, and then you just flip the home and away.
If you were in LA last year, you know you're home this year. Of course, I still think UCLA and USC are going to be two top-tier teams. You want to play them at home, but then you've got your natural rival game on the women's side.
Yeah, so less drama. So we'll flip it a little bit and do a little more insight into these teams, get some lists from Shimmy in terms of the teams she's watching, who did well in the portal, all of that stuff coming up. But our big story, again, is the women's hoops. And let's look at the schedules, and we'll certainly do it with every team. But again, if you were following along last year, you know what the schedule is this year. UCLA made its first ever NCAA Final Four last season. They play USC twice. And then the home and road games, again, simply flipped from last year with the other 16 teams. Key home games include Maryland and Iowa. They travel to Michigan. And Jimmy's put together teams to watch. And this is the first among your teams to watch, and with good reason. Obviously, a team that made it to the Final Four, as we said a year ago. They did have some players transfer out. Again, that's everywhere. I mean, maybe with one exception, I think that we'll get to in the Big Ten. Everyone has players go in and out. But I know this is a team that many people feel once again can be a Final Four contender.
So you talk about the portal and what UCLA lost. So let's start with that. They did lose 6 players to the portal. So it's not a bad thing anymore. There used to be a stigma about losing players to the portal. Players leave now for many reasons because they can. So let's get rid of that. It's not a bad thing they lost 6 players. They lost 6 players. Some of those players were players that didn't play a lot because it's hard to crack into that rotation. Remember, UCLA spent 12 weeks as the #1 team in the country. 2 of the players, though, I am a little concerned about. They lose London Jones, who's their best 3-point shooter. They also lose Janiah Barker, who was the Big Ten's reigning 6th player of the year. So you lose those 2, and they don't have anyone coming in. They did not sign anyone out of the portal, which is a little concerning. So that's the bad news for UCLA. Good news, they returned their core, including National Player of the Year candidate Lauren Betts. They've got Kiki Rice. You know, you have Angela Duglich, who's decided to come back for a rare 6th year. And then they also have the #2 ranked player in the country coming in, Sienna Betts. So I want to keep my eye on the defending Big Ten tournament champs, UCLA.
Yeah, no doubt. And yeah, you mentioned Sienna Betts, Lauren Betts' younger sister. And then Charlize Ledger-Walker sat out last year, and she's a really key transfer who was a
from
great
Washington State,
player
that's right.
2 years ago. So I realize she didn't come in the portal this year, but that is an addition to the team this year that will help them immensely.
Each day, someone new from UCLA entered the portal, and everyone was in uproar. Calm down. Corey Close is a great coach, but this is definitely a team to keep your eye on.
Another team to keep your eye on as we head cross town would be their rivals in USC. Again, they play literally the exact same schedule as the Bruins. 2 play against UCLA, and then the same home and road opponents. Remember, the Big Ten structured the travel in such a way, as Shimmy mentioned, that every team that heads to LA plays both schools. So if those 2 end up separated by a game in the standings, we cannot say one of them had the easier road. Let's take a look at how the portal impacted the Trojans. London Jones, we already mentioned her. She is coming over from the rival Bruins. Also got an all-ACC pick in Cara Dunn. The issue, of course, is the departure of Kiki Iriefin to the WNBA. And then the injury to Juju Watkins, and to leave that for when I did is perhaps bearing the lead. The torn ACL. To me, this is the biggest wild card, right? Because you just don't know. Will she come back at some point next year? Will she sit out the whole year? It just changes the complexion of this team so dramatically.
Her camp is being very mum on that, and as they should. It's still way too early to tell, and you're talking about someone who has so much to risk if she does come back early. But, we talk about great coaches in this league. I think this league from top to bottom, full of great coaches, none better than Lindsey Gottlieb. And what she was able to do the entire season, who knows what kind of postseason they would have had Juju not gone out. I am concerned about losing Avery Howe, and they lose Heckel. They lose 2 freshmen of this very talented freshman class. Howe pops over to University of Washington. They get London Jones to replace some of that shooting that they're going to lose. Heckel was a really good defender who, would have played a more prominent role in their rotation this season. And you couple that with what they lost to graduation with Rhea Marshall and Kiki. So it'll be interesting to see what Lindsay does. Now, here's something else that they lost to the portal. They lost an assistant coach to the coaches portal. Very important assistant, Wendell Farrell, who's been with Lindsay since she was at Cal. He's over at South Carolina now, and I know that he was a great recruiter for Lindsay, and he was also very, very good post coach for her as well.
Speaking of great recruiting, they bring in Jazzy Davidson, who is considered by some to be the best freshman in the country next year, depending on the recruiting rankings that you follow. So they have a pretty good track record with good young players.
She's a great coach.
Yeah,
Great coach.
No doubt. Let's check out Indiana and the Hoosiers again. They play that natural rival in Purdue twice. They play a number of the best teams on the road this coming year, traveling to Maryland, UCLA, USC. They do get Iowa and Michigan at home, among others. A lot of player movement for Terry Morin's team. Maybe the biggest surprise, at least to outsiders, the departure of Yarden Garzone, who is leaving for Maryland. They do have 7 players coming in as of now, including a pair of top 100 freshmen. You have Shea Chesky, who, remember, transferred herself earlier from Penn State back as a team leader. But what do you make of the Hoosiers?
They lost a lot. And Terry Morin, she's always done a good job of getting 1 or 2 pieces from the portal to complement, to fill in. Well, in this case, she's had to recruit almost an entirely new team. And so I don't think she's been in that position since this whole portal movement and portal craze has started. So I'm going to be really curious to see. I mean, she did bring in several players from the portal. Most of them, with the exception of Kiaku from Duquesne, were all role players. Now, they came from Power 4 schools, but they were role players. And so you never know how a horse is going to pull till you hook them to a heavy load. That's what my mom used to say. So, I am very curious to see. This is an Indiana program that's been near the top of the standings for the last 5 years.
3 of the last 5 Sweet 16s.
That's right.
Great program.
Absolutely.
Right.
Exactly. And so what now? How is Terry Morin going to take, all these portal role players and because they're not going to be satisfied, just finishing in the middle or to the bottom of the Big Ten. I don't see that happening. So I am watching Terry to see what she does this season.
Again, a fabulous coach with an incredible track record. And look, there's still the possibility of adding more pieces in the portal as well. So none of these are finished products necessarily at this point until you get to the roster limit. But again, not the situation at Indiana. Let's run through some more of these schedules. Michigan, building around its talented core of young players. They get Michigan State twice. Home games include both USC and UCLA, plus Maryland and Ohio State, team that made the second round of the NCAA tournament this past season. Oregon, also a second-round tourney team this past year under Kelly Graves. Washington is the 2-play. They get both Michigan and Michigan State at home. They head on the road for Maryland, USC, and UCLA. Michigan State, been a really good story. Last couple of years under Robin Freilich, Grace Van Sluten, Theron Hollick are back. They did well in the portal. The 2-play again is Michigan, Indiana, Maryland, Ohio State, UCLA, USC among their highest profile home games. Like the Spartans, Ohio State's seen as a team that can compete to be in the top 25 this coming season. Been knocked out in the second round of the tourney each of the last 3 years. Their 2-play is Maryland, a couple good teams there. Then you see the home and road. Again, it bears repeating, these are all simply the inverse of the home and road schedules from a year ago. Let's get to Nebraska. Amy Williams, Cornhuskers, been to 2 straight NCAA tourneys. The 2-play for them is Iowa. Key home games include Illinois, Indiana, Maryland, USC, and UCLA. They play both of the Michigan schools on the road this year. Minnesota trying to build on the WBIT championship. Remember, beat Belmont to win that tourney. Tori McKinney was great in that one. She's back. Wisconsin, once again, is the 2-play for them. Some high-profile home games at the barn. Maryland, Michigan State, Ohio State, UCLA, and USC. Through the rest of the women's hoop schedules, Illinois, what a job Shauna Green's done, making the NCAA tourney 2 times in her first 3 seasons in Champaign. The Illini played Northwestern twice. You see the rest of the slate. The LA schools will come to the State Farm Center, as does Maryland. They will visit the 2 Michigan schools. Iowa is entering year 2 under Jan Jensen, made the second round of the NCAA tourney this past year after playing in the previous 2 title games with Caitlin Clark. Hannah Stolke among those returning to face this slate. The 2 plays against Nebraska, head to UCLA and USC this year after playing both at Carver last year. Illinois, Michigan, Michigan State among the key home games. Rutgers trying to bounce back from a 3-win conference campaign. They did get to play in the WNIT. 2 play for them is Penn State, Indiana, Maryland, and Michigan among the key home games as they enter year 4 under Coach East Washington. Penn State just 1 conference win last season. They'll try to bounce back against a slate that includes those 2 games against Rutgers. They get UCLA and USC at home, as well as Michigan and Michigan State. Their West Coast trip is Washington and Oregon. Year 1 under Robin Pingeton at Wisconsin. The new head coach for the Badgers will face this schedule, has that 2 play against Minnesota, Indiana, Iowa, and Michigan State among those coming to the Kohl Center. Tough road slate: Illinois, Michigan, Ohio State, UCLA, and USC. Purdue trying to bounce back from a 3-win conference campaign after making it to the NCAA tourney's first 4 the prior season. It's year 4 under Katie Geralds. They face Indiana twice, get Illinois at home, as well as Iowa and Ohio State. Head on the road for Michigan, Maryland, UCLA, and USC. And Northwestern, final season in Evanston for Joe McEwen, who will retire after next season. See if they can bounce back from a tough year. Illinois twice, as we mentioned. Iowa, Michigan, UCLA, and USC among the biggest games over at Welsh Ryan. So that is the schedule look. Let's dig a little deeper into some of these teams. Brenda Frese's team in the Sweet 16 a season ago. Told you about their slate earlier, including that 2 play against Ohio State. Let's get into the comings and goings for them. Kaylin Schmeichel and Saylor Poffenberger are back. They did really well in the portal, including 2 Big Ten players. We mentioned Yarden Garzone, as well as Gracie Merkel coming over, and then an outstanding transfer from Duke as well. And as we get into the portal winners, Maryland's front and center.
Jackpot.
Yeah.
Jackpot. Brenda Frese has done it again. You know, got better in the portal last year and then elevated it this year. I mean, you get Garzone herself is an absolute winner if that's the only player you get. She's Indiana's all-time leading 3-point shooter, and she's going to Maryland, you know, where she's going to be able to just space the floor so well, because you also have Gracie Merkel coming in. Big girl in the middle. She was a Penn State player, double-double machine, averaged over 15 points, almost 10 rebounds a game. So I can only imagine how those 2 are going to be able to play together. And then you get the ACC's tournament most outstanding player, 6th player of the year, and Aluchi Okinawa from Duke. Those 3 players alone, that's jackpot for Brenda Frese. I just don't think we talk enough about not just how great of a recruiter she is, but how well she's able to scheme around these great players once she gets them.
She's done an amazing job in the portal kind of year in and year out. There are years, again, as we've talked about, you know, players are going to leave. Players leave every program, but it just feels like she has such a good sense of what her program needs and the pieces plug in. There's a reason they are being considered kind of a fringe top 10 team, I would say. If you look at some of these way too early top 25 rankings,
that's right.
They're right there, and they're going to be there.
And they
year.
should be. They should be.
Yeah. All right, so let's go to Washington. And this was a solid team a year ago, one that made the first 4 of the NCAA tourney before losing to Columbia. It was the first time they made the tourney in 8 years. Another quick gander at that schedule, the 2 play with Oregon, the road games this year, UCLA and USC. And then here are the comings and goings. And I guess that you are probably more focused on the retention here, Shimmy. We say the portal swings both ways, but in this case, they did not have a single player leave in the portal, right? I mean, they either went to the WNBA or 2 players graduated. So is that what makes them a portal winner?
Yes, their portal door is
Swings one
enter,
way.
is enter only, no exit. They lose Delia Daniels to the WNBA, a post player, all conference post player. That hurts them, but they get Grabowskaia from University of Michigan, one of those intra-conference transfer portal kids, and I think that helps fill the gap. But what I really like about Washington is they bring in Avery Howe from USC. So if you recall, Washington last year, they led the Big Ten in three-point shooting. So now you get Avery Howe, another big guard who can defend, who can knock down the three, that really complements the perimeter players that Tina Langley didn't lose to the portal. So they retain almost everyone on their team except for Daniels, and then they get better with Grabowskaia and Avery Howe. Each year, Tina Langley, she did it at Rice, and now she's doing it at Washington. She just incrementally gets better and better and better. She's a great coach.
Arrow is pointing up for sure, and then you mentioned not just the portal, but a really good recruiting class. Got a McDonald's All-American coming in, so lots to be excited about in Seattle. Let's take a look at Rutgers, and help me understand this one, because I think a lot of people would look at the loss of Kealmy McMiller and say that's really damaging. I know she was in and out of the lineup, son, but certainly a very talented player. Top 6 scorers are gone. Obviously, Destiny Adams had an incredible career there. So tell me why they are a winner. What do you like about the portal moves that they made?
Well, first of all, without Kealmy McMiller, they actually started playing better towards the end of the season. Other guards started stepping up, and sometimes that happens a lot. That's no disrespect to Kealmy McMiller. What Coquise Washington did is she went in and she brought 6 players out of the portal. She got 6 players out of the portal. What I like about this is 4 of the 6 come from Power 4 schools. They weren't just role players. They were players who were prominent within their programs, including a true point guard who averaged almost 5 assists a game from Boston College. So I like that. Half of those players have more than 1 year of eligibility left. So I like that. So she's going to be, if she can retain them, she's going to be able to build with them as she continues to build Rutgers' program. You think about what she did a couple years ago with Destiny Adams. Destiny Adams came from North Carolina out of the portal, hardly played at North Carolina. Her numbers weren't eye-popping by any means. Destiny Adams leaves this past year as a first-team all-conference player. I look at Imani Lester from Kansas State, and I see that same type of potential. Sometimes it's all about fit. So I think with what Coquise did and Rutgers did is they brought in Power 4 talent and physicality and size to help them compete in the Big Ten, which is something that they've been lacking for the last couple of years. I think what she was able to do in the portal was enough to get them from the bottom of the Big Ten to the middle of the Big Ten.
Interesting. And again, so much of it is kind of understanding your program, knowing what it is you need. To your point, it isn't necessarily are these players at the very top of everyone's list. It's who do we need to plug in to become the best team.
I mean, we know Coquise can coach.
Well,
I mean, she was at Penn State, 3-time, Big Ten champ. So we know what she can do with talent. She's going to have some talent next year.
So that is an interesting one to watch. Maybe a little bit under the radar because they're not necessarily listed among those teams cleaning up in the portal, but some really good insight there, no doubt. More from Shimmy coming up